Hey, good evening, everybody. We're back again for another edition of Meteorology Lab, and we have some shadows out across Texas coming from some CBs, and you see those off to the west of the Dallas area, west of Waco and Austin, and it's those little black things stretching out from those clouds, and we can actually see it visually here. You saw those little spikes. Those are from clouds that are 250 miles away out around the Abilene area, and we can see those all the way out here. So that's like if you're in New York City and there's storms in Pittsburgh, that would be like seeing developments overshooting tops from those. Or if you were in North Indiana, that would be like seeing storms in Iowa. So definitely have big skies here in Texas. Well, for those of you following the news cycle, obviously Maria is in the headlines big time. This was a Category 5 storm. Yesterday, it was just east of the, I want to say that's, yeah, that would be just west of the Windward Islands here. So there's the eye yesterday, and then the day before that, we had it approaching the Windward Islands. So it's been kind of a two-day saga, and now we've seen it cross Puerto Rico pretty much directly over the island. And I don't know how many of you have actually seen the radar, but let me bring it up. Best place to go to that would be College DuPage. They've got a pretty good radar analysis system. And we'll click on NextRad Sites and take this out to Puerto Rico. Do they not have Puerto Rico on here? Well, let's see. What would be the next best source? Earlier today I was looking at it on GR Level 2. I'll just Google it. GR Level 2 will use up a little bit of bandwidth here. Very strange. This is kind of a hard radar to find. Online we'll try just going to weather.gov, I guess, then. And okay, well, let me go ahead and just pull that up in the background. I guess GR Level 3 is not going to hit the bandwidth too hard, so let me do that. GR Level 3, we'll bring that up. We don't use GR Level 3 all that often, but I think we should use it more since it's very good to the stream. So I've got it in my favorites already from the Irma saga, and let's bring up the base reflectivity. And I'm not getting a response. It's probably timed out, but actually, yeah, you know, sorry about it. I just wasn't prepared for this. I do have it in PaintShop Pro because being a good archivist, I do save interesting files, and here it is. There's a look at... oh, yeah, this did come from College DuPage. I got the radar somehow from them, but this was the last frame. This came in at 5:50 a.m. Eastern Time, and you can see the eye making landfall right there. The radar is I'm not sure exactly where the site is. I guess it must be up on that ridge right there. That would be just southwest of San Juan, maybe to the south of there. And I guess they just got hammered by that eye wall, and that's that ring that you see right here. The eye wall definitely, or the eye itself definitely going through transition. Looks like there's an inner eye wall. So it looks like the topographic interactions were starting to take effect. And you can see this large spiral bands here, and it looked like there were some pretty potent storms just north of the island right there. That would be a good location where the shear would be optimal for rotating storms. Wanted to see if I had the TDWR, but that went out also. So San Juan was without radar coverage, and we had to use satellite to really see what was going on. And not only satellite, but lightning detection was of a lot of help. So there's the latest image, and we see Maria heading out to shore there, just north of the Dominican Republic. But let's take this back a lot earlier. And I'll run the loops through here. So take just a second. Let's see here. Yeah, there we go. This will show the approach of Maria. And right here, this is the U.S. Virgin Islands. And obviously, they got hit pretty hard there because the eye wall with the combined forward speed, that's this part of the storm, and that went right for the U.S. Virgin Islands right there. And I believe that this up here is the British Virgin Islands. I'd have to look at a map, but let me get this position, and we'll run the last 24 hours or so. So let me check the times here. Yeah, this would be about 24 hours ago. And at this point, it was pretty much at its peak right there. We were seeing pressures of about 909 millibars. And I believe that may be the strongest storm of the season. There were sustained winds of about 170, gusting to 210 miles an hour. And that's from NHC. And you can see right at that point right there, it crossed the island. And then we get up to 16Z, which is going to be about 11 a.m. Eastern. And we see the circulation reemerge on the other side of the island. Some very potent convective clusters developing right there towards the end. Now, another way we can look at the imagery is using the Dvorak enhancement, and that maps the temperatures to a different color spectrum. And let me bring that up here. Okay, Dvorak, yeah, that's the one. So this is kind of a time-tested technique for judging hurricane intensity. And let me find out where the loop starts. Yeah, there it is right there. Okay, so starting out, what we're seeing here, oh yeah, I've got the mini-me going. Yeah, there it is. Almost forgot about that. Let me take a look at the chat, make sure the mic isn't off or something stupid like that. Alex Front, Stephen R. Taco Bell is here. Michael Moore, got a pretty good crowd tonight. David, did I say Michael Moore? Okay, David Moore. Had a small MCS pass to the north last night. North Texas has been hot and humid. Yeah, you know, I stepped outside 20 minutes ago, and it was like a wall of humidity. I run a dehumidifier here because I just can't stand all the moisture. Fun with Tech is here. Stephen R., Kevin McKinney, Ryan Toomey's our tropical expert. And yeah, I was looking through my my frames here, and I found this from a long time ago. I had a special frame here for Ryan Toomey's, and I'm trying to find out where that was. Was it on these? Yeah, that's an old frame there. I can't remember. We had some sort of funny frame here for Ryan. It was like the tropical update desk. So, Okay, I'll find that next time. And I'm losing my voice right on schedule. Okay, Justin Pulliam is here, ADW, Ron Chalfonten, Carl Berghoff. Ryan says South Florida pretty much 90% back to power. That's good to hear. A few pockets of no power and down infrastructure. However, he adds that San Juan is completely knocked out. 100% power outage on the island. Service is cut off. And spoke to a client on his satellite phone in San Juan. Airport is damaged severely with debris all over the runway. And Ryan says that island we were looking at earlier was St. Croix, U.S. Virgin Island Territory. Northeast eye wall on top of San Juan. Videos posted up online with the eye wall crossover. Stephen R. says, thanks for doing the show tonight. I appreciate it. I did have to take a break over the past few days. Doing these live casts 7 days a week is kind of a grind, and I'm trying to fit my programming and my writing and trying to make time for all this, and it's pretty easy to get burned out. So even when we have a Cat 5 hurricane, sometimes I just have to take a rest and get caught up. And I'm going to try this 9 o'clock schedule and see if this works out a little bit better. And Carl mentioned the color tables on GR level 2. Yeah, that's a good point. We have Mike R here. Yeah, I think I mentioned Mike R earlier. I think I did. And Alex Front, curious how Maria will interact with Jose. And interactions could be the Fujiwara effect, or it could be just passing over the cold currents, because these tropical storms, they tend to overturn the ocean and bring up cooler air from below, or cooler water to higher depths, and they kind of leave a trail. And maybe we'll take a look at that and see if we can see that. Let me get to the beginning of my slideshow here. See if I can insert a frame. Okay. Let's see, sea surface temperature. Yeah, that was OSPO. They've got the good sea surface temperature charts. And let me see if I can pull up the latest one here. Okay, last time we looked at this, I could have sworn we had something a little bit more high resolution. So let me just kind of dig around in here. May have been one of these. Okay, yeah, that's a pretty good one right there. Blended 5-kilometer sea surface temperature analysis for the U.S. Pacific, U.S. Atlantic, 19th September. So this is yesterday. However, with Jose being right off the, I think it was just off the New Jersey coast. Let's take a look there. Yeah, it's off Block Island and Cape Cod there, up in this area here. So it looks like that's actually overturned some of the ocean surface right there. But south of that, we have sea surface temperatures around 29, which is about 84 Fahrenheit. Definitely strong enough, definitely warm enough to support strong hurricane development there, all the way up to off the Carolinas. And let's see, let me get back on track here. I was going to take a look at the Dvorak enhancement, watching the approach of Maria. And let me get rid of me for a second here, and you can see that a little bit better. So what we see here is a very thick white enhancement band. This is pretty much solid white. There's certain criteria for how wide the bands have to be, and it has to encircle the entire storm with that particular color. And that white definitely puts it way up there. I guess the T number is like 6 or so. And we also evaluate the temperature in the eye, like right there. And I'm seeing in the center there, I'm seeing a very warm color there. So that adds like 0.5 to 1 point to that T rating. So that's definitely going to put this way up there as far as strength. Now in terms of temperature, let me see if I can show this to you. Yeah, if you look to the bottom when I stick this right there in the eye, 287 Kelvin. That's going to be about 14 Celsius, about 57 Fahrenheit. So we're seeing kind of a blend of the hang on a second, I'm trying to figure out what happened to the mini-me. Oh, I'm sorry. There we go. Clicked the wrong one. Yeah, so it's picking up a temperature of about 57 Fahrenheit. So a lot of that radiation contribution is from the ocean surface. So there's a lot of transparency through that depth. But apparently it's picking up a little bit of maybe low cloud, a little bit of overcast blended in, or maybe a little bit of high cirrus. One of the two. So there's a little bit of some kind of scattered or broken layer in there affecting the readings. But still, I can see those pixels there indicating some good warmth, and that would definitely bring up that rating. So that's something you would look at there when you're doing an evaluation. Okay, so we'll run this forward. This was last night, and we see it approaching the U.S. Virgin Islands right there. And what you want to look at as we roll through this is look at the white color and look at how much it encircles the eye and how thick it is and how consistent it is. So you'll see as it gets closer, it looks like it kind of thins out in the forward quadrant right there. And we also look at the center of that eye. It's still showing a warm color. And there it seems like we've lost it. We've went down a category to black. So this is a black eye wall. And we've shifted from the very warm color to the off-white color. That's what this greenish shade is. So now we're probably down to light gray for the eye wall color. So we're going down and down and down as far as intensity as we approach the Puerto Rican coast. So at this point it doesn't look like in category 5 there, at least to me, because we're kind of losing that. Yeah, and you see right here now we're definitely down into the black readings, and in the center, very cold center, indicating that we're filling with cloud material. So that center right there, that's a temperature of about minus 13 Celsius. So definitely some mid and high cloud there. And then continuing on, now Maria is crossing the island. It's about 8 to 9 Eastern. And looks like we're down to a central dense overcast type pattern, maybe, or maybe kind of like a comma shape. I would have to look at the tables there, but yeah, we've definitely broken up the eye there. It looks like the eye kind of returns there, and then as we continue forward through the remainder of the day, looks like we've got the eye forming right there again. And there it is. It pops up at 23Z. That's going to be about 2 or 3 hours ago. Very rapid development of that eye. Central temperature about minus 10 Celsius. So it's still cloud-filled. And then we end up right here, starting to develop that eye. The color scheme is light gray. So we're probably down, I guess, maybe the T5 to T5.5 range, which is going to be probably, I guess, about a category 2 maybe. I would have to look at the tables there. Now let's check it out looking at the visible imagery. Okay. So at this point, the time is the 19th during the middle of the day, so this is about 36 hours ago. And it looks like the eye has a little bit of cloud at this point. Let me get this all centered here. Hang on a second. Okay. So we'll run this forward a little bit, and we'll watch the hurricane continue moving northwest. So it's still intensifying at this point, and we see a little bit of clear, a little bit of ocean surface right there. But there's some fragments there spinning around cyclonically. And there it is shortly before sunset. There's one last look before the sun goes down. A little bit of convection developing there on the west side of that eye wall. And then we've got 12 hours of nighttime. So then the next day it's going to be over Puerto Rico somewhere. Okay, so yeah, that must have been scary there in the Virgin Islands. A hurricane going through during the nighttime. And now it reemerges around the Puerto Rico area. And you can see already that the eye is filled. The eye is somewhere right in that area. And there's the storm as it crosses the Puerto Rican island. And looks like some higher convective elements right in that area, some more right there. And then towards the very end, you can see some development right there. That is probably orographic. Puerto Rico has a major influence on these tropical systems. It's a very rugged island. I don't know if you've seen any pictures of it. The average elevation is about 900 feet. The highest peak is about 4,000 feet. So, and it measures about 90 miles long, about 35 miles across. So that's a very huge, substantial landmass, and that's going to really tear systems like this up. And then the last frame of the day, it looks like mostly cirriform cloud, like old cirrus debris there, and most of the convective elements are near the landmass itself. So that's a look at Maria, and let's take a look at what it looks like at this moment. Let me clear out some of these frames, and I'll get you the very absolute latest image. Just have to do some poking around on here. Oh, I accidentally loaded the visible imagery. Get rid of that. 4 kilometer, 10.7. Yeah, we're still stuck with the old GOES data, unfortunately. They don't allow the public, for whatever reason, to access the newer ABI, maybe because it's not operational yet. But the stuff is still useful. 1 kilometer or 4 kilometers is still useful, definitely. Okay, so here it comes. There's the latest infrared imagery. Okay, so there's Maria at 2:15Z, which is about 12 minutes ago. And very wide eye right there. And this is grayscale. This is all temperature. And this is where we use enhancement. And we'll go ahead and bring that up. And we can use any kind of enhancement that we want to. It's kind of fun to go through and experiment. For example, here's one kind of enhancement. And we can enhance it like that too and come up with some very interesting schemes. But let's look at the Dvorak enhancement. See how things are coming along. Okay, so we have a definite, well-defined eye right there. It's still off-white in the center. The overall eye wall pattern is going to be light gray. So it's starting to come up pretty good. Now, there is a way we can keep track of that using computer technology. And University of Wisconsin has a ADT page. And I guess a good way to get there would be to just go to Google. I guess that's one of the good things about this channel. I not only show you the products, but I try to show you, when I remember, I try to show you how to get to them. So let's do that real quick. Okay, go into Google, go to University of Wisconsin, UWISC, and put in ADT, and that'll take you right to that page there. And of course, it brings up ADT security. But that's not going to be too helpful. Okay, so there's the page that you want to go to, and Maria is in the list. And this is their advanced Dvorak technique algorithm. So there's a satellite monitoring program that watches these storms and keeps constant tabs on what's happening with the temperatures, and it uses the Dvorak method on the storm. So this is kind of what it's analyzing right there, and it shows you where it positioned the center of the storm. And then it gives you this very useful graph here that kind of correlates with intensity there. So you can see earlier, trying to fit all of this on the screen here. Yeah, so you can see the intensification right there. And these here are the Dvorak T numbers. And I don't know if you can see it on the right there, but yeah, there's the corresponding intensities, 1 minute sustained winds right there. So you can see the rapid intensification during the 18th. And then during the 19th, we definitely got into some Cat 4, Cat 5 territory there. So it peaked around 6Z. So that would be about 3 hours before the radar went down there at San Juan. And then you can see the dramatic decline in the wind speeds and T numbers there. Went down to about a T 5.5 to 6. And then it bottomed out, and looks like it's picking up steam once again right there with the last 2 hours of satellite readings. Okay, so where's it heading? We can look at layer flow here. That's another thing that the University of Wisconsin has. And we're looking at, for example, the 400 to 850 millibar layer. This is about 25,000 all the way down to 5,000. And when the storms are intense like this, they're kind of steered through a very deep layer. And you can see that there's a definite westerly component as you get up to about 25 to 30 north up in this area here. And even through a shallow layer, there's still kind of a westerly flow there. So there's a lot of influence here to recurve the storm to the east. So it's looking fairly unlikely that it's going to hit the coast there. And looking at all the different layers here, that one is very strongly westerly. So especially when we sample those higher layers, we get a very strong westerly component. 400 850, this is, I think that's the one we were looking at. Yeah, so storm located right there, and it's going to continue moving north and start that recurvature process. So what do we got for NHC? We've got Cat Category 2 hurricane, 110 knot winds with pressure rising very rapidly from 90. That's probably not an accurate term. It's risen considerably from 909 to 958 millibars. So it's lost probably about 50% of its strength there, crossing the Puerto Rican island. And it's moving northwest at 12 knots, and the track is taking it pretty well offshore. Recurvature. Looks like that's going to happen over the weekend, Saturday and Sunday. So we'll take a look at the global ensemble and see if there's any risk to the East Coast. But I did look at the European and GFS, and they've got it all recurving pretty sharply there. Okay, let's start switching over a little bit to the U.S. weather. And I'll take a look at the chat, see what's going on. Usually when I go to chat, I try to put up something interesting. So yeah, there's some satellite. This is the infrared for this evening. And you can see those storms there in Texas that were producing the shadows earlier. Wow, we're back up to almost 30 people, so I guess maybe there's not too much of a problem getting this stream up at 9 p.m. Okay, Alex Wade, love learning from you guys. Waiting for cold front to hit North Texas. Yeah, I'm definitely crossing my fingers that we get that cold weather soon. 72 in southern Jersey, where Brett Dean is. Much cooler air mass in place over Northern California. Fall is in the air. Ryan says there is no contact with the southwest area of St. Croix of the Virgin Islands. Southwest area of St. Croix. Are you talking about the island itself? I know that island is very small. I believe it's like maybe 7 by maybe 2 miles, something like that. I'm trying to gauge just how bad the damage is there, so I was going to bring up Google Earth to the rescue. I mean, my geography is good, but I still have a lot of problems. So let's see what we're looking at. There's Puerto Rico right there. And this is the island in question here that I believe we're talking about. There's St. Croix. Okay, yeah, so Ryan says southwest St. Croix. I guess we're talking about this area. Am I correct? Right there? Okay, so the island measures, it's bigger than I thought. 22 miles by 6 miles. And it looks like mostly a little bit of agriculture, a little bit of jungle, and yeah, there's all these little neighborhoods all the way down here. So apparently, I guess they took the brunt of the damage in that Frederickstead southwest area, at least from what I'm hearing here. Man, so yeah, this has been quite a season, and I understand that the damage is already up to like $250 billion from the previous Category 5 storms that we've had, and now we're looking at yet another one. I'm sure this is going to be way up in the billions here. Maria is in the process of re-strengthening as the eye wall is reformed 90 miles east-northeast of Punta Cana, Dominican Republic. Incredible eye wall restructuring is shown. And Ryan says Maria will re-energize into a Category 4 storm over the next 36 hours. Ocean temperatures extremely warm west-northwest of the storm track. All right. So we will bring this on into the current weather. In our area of the U.S., looks like we've got some pretty good moisture across the southern U.S. Cold air coming into the northern plains behind this very strong system up in Canada. This is a large occluded low right here in the Saskatchewan area. So what we've got here looks like a warm front from the Great Lakes down to Kansas and Oklahoma. In the north of that, we've got some sort of warm front. I'm not sure how many of you remember when we were talking about baroclinic leafs and other satellite structures like this. This is a kind of a development of the baroclinic leaf. This is actually a comet cloud system. But you can kind of see the leaf structure right there. And that's where we put the warm front, just kind of south of that area. And then everything north of that, I mean, the warm front could be a little bit further north maybe, but in any case, what we have from here on to the northwest, that's going to be the occluded front. And then we've got stuff going on in the Pacific Northwest. So looking at this cumulus offshore, very unstable air. Looks like we've got cold air moving over a warm, relatively warm ocean water region right there. And this has the look of cold air spreading southward like that. And we see what looks like maybe a little bit of a comet cloud structure there. So I'm going to look for it. Let me bring up the state outlines here. Okay, so it looks like we've got maybe some sort of frontal system, possibly in Idaho. There's also a possibility it could be way up here in Canada too. Could be something like that also. So we'll just have to look at the charts and see what we got going on. But that's the general area we're going to look at. Definitely looks like a much different air mass in Washington compared to California. And in Los Angeles, we've got a lot of fog and stratus in the valley area. San Bernardino there, and Ventura, Santa Barbara. Looks like we've got some of that marine air has worked inland. Okay, not much going on in the U.S. except for a little area of storms along that cold front in Madison, Rockford, Quad Cities. I'm going to check the text in case something is going on. Okay. All right, so upper air patterns. Let's check that out. This is the hemispheric weather pattern, and this is one way we can kind of find the long waves and get an idea of the general flow. The blue areas are below normal height. So this is a low height anomaly over the western U.S. right there. So we're going to expect to find the jet stream something like that right there from California up to Minnesota. And you can see that pinching of the height field. And I discussed that back on Sunday, where those lines come together very closely in this area right here in Minnesota. That's where we're going to find the main area of baroclinicity. So I would expect to find the cold front extending south from that and the warm front east from that, like that. So that's how we put that system together. And it looks like there's another little area of baroclinicity, possibly maybe a very small system in the backside, maybe something like that. So I'll check the charts and see if we have that going on. 250 millibar chart does show a little bit of support there for baroclinicity in Idaho. See, we got that jet max right over that area. And then we have the pinching there of the height field over Minnesota. This is from this morning, though. And if Very strong curvature there, very tight packing of the height field, and that's an area of where we would expect to find a surface frontal system. There's the Canadian analysis from earlier. What time is this? This is 18Z. This is going to be about noon. So a very well-developed system there in Canada and to the north. Very strong polar air mass. And we see temperatures in there, -1. This is like lunchtime temperatures. 1 Celsius, that's going to be about 34, 25, 30. So yeah, some very cold air starting to develop in the Canadian high Arctic. And then another way we can take a look at things is by the 700 millibar pattern. Now the red and blue lines, those are going to be isotherms, and we've got very strong packing of those isotherms. So it looks like we've possibly got a 700 millibar front in this area right there. This is a front aloft at about 10,000 feet. And some of the strongest packing right there in the Minnesota area. So based on this, I would expect to find the 700 millibar front maybe way up there for the warm front, and then the cold front, something like that. And sometimes the upper level front does tend to outrun the surface front. And as a result, when you outrun the surface front, when like the upper front is like way out here, for example, and the surface front is way back here, that is a cold over warm pattern. Because up at 10,000 feet, if it's warm, if it's cold up at 10,000 feet with this very cold air mass rapidly spreading in, that's a cold over warm situation, and that means a very unstable air mass. So we would see a lot of destabilization and possibility of severe weather if there's enough low-level moisture, for example. Okay, there's the theta analysis. Let me just check and see if that's up to date. Let's see, I'm going to probably keep this moving along. There's those thunderstorms up in the Quad Cities area on visible imagery. Some pretty good overshooting tops, and that extends all the way down to Kansas. And then the water vapor imagery shows a lot of moisture across the U.S. Very little dry air, surprisingly. So I'm not really too sure what the source of this moisture is. I would probably go and look at some other charts to see what's going on in that area right there. I would expect to see that area a little bit drier than it is now. All right, if we take a look at the soundings, we'll look at Aberdeen, for example. Looks like we do have some dry air there, some dry mid-level conditions, but most of the moisture is in the upper levels, in the upper troposphere, from about 23,000 upward. So I guess this could be maybe some wraparound moisture way up in the upper parts of the troposphere, or this could be originating from the Pacific. But below that, a very steep lapse rate that indicates some strong modification of the low-level air, and very dry there with that new Pacific air mass spreading in. Okay, so let's take a look at the forecast. I'm going to look at the global ensemble run and see what we're looking at as far as that hurricane goes. And these are all possibilities for weather over the next several days. Now remember, this gave us some problems last time. Looks like it's loading fine. Yeah, it's looking pretty good there. All right, so let's see what we're forecasting. There's 20 ensemble members. And there's also a control, and I'm not sure where that is. But these are the 20 ensemble runs, and you can see very strong recurvature, number 1, number 2. Number 3 comes inland a bit. Number 4 keeps it offshore. Number 5, offshore. 6. So what I'm looking at is consistency on that recurvature to make sure we don't have any surprises here. Yeah, see here, number 2 and 10 come kind of close to Block Island and Cape Cod. And then the other ensembles, let's check those out. Okay, so number 11 offshore, 12 offshore, 13 offshore, 14 hangs around the Cape Hatteras area, and then towards Cape Cod. 15 offshore, 16 offshore, 17 close to Cape Cod, 18 comes up into the Long Island area, and the 19 offshore, 20 is offshore. Okay, so there's pretty strong agreement between most of the ensemble members that we're going to see the storm recurve and head out to sea. So it's looking okay there, but I would continue to kind of watch things. Okay, so for the next week, let's check out the upper air patterns. Wow, we got some very strong dynamics out in the western U.S. Very strong jet max coming in from California, and you can see, look at those strong height falls there in California over the next 2 days. So that upper level low really digs in there. Large changes in the weather in California and Nevada. And then we see it crossing the Rockies here over the weekend. So with these strong dynamics coming into the Four Corners area, this is where we're going to watch for moisture to come up through Texas into the Great Plains, and we'll see a possibility of maybe some storms breaking out in the high plains. So I think we're going to watch for that sometime between Saturday and Tuesday. And then the jet really starts picking up strength there on Tuesday and Wednesday in the Central Plains. And then we see a little bit of ridging up in Montana. Another system comes onshore. And then we get kind of into a northwesterly flow situation here towards the first week of October there. Okay. Let me scan the chat here real quick. Michael Burrell says he's been keeping up with the webcasts after work. Fantastic. It's good to hear. 90 degrees there in Atlanta. Yep, unseasonable heat. We're at 83. Pretty warm for this hour. So where's the cold weather? Let's check that out. Okay, here's the forecast for the next 2 weeks. For tomorrow night, what we're going to see is a very dynamic pattern out west, and we'll take a look at that tomorrow night. Look at that, a lot of snow showers up in the Ely, Nevada area there. Very strong pressure gradient through the Nevada test range up to Salt Lake City. And I'm not too sure exactly where that front is. I would think that the front is well to the south like this, but there could be kind of a little localized area of baroclinicity back on the rear side of that. Then the warm front through the Dakotas kind of like that. Okay, then for Saturday and Sunday, let's bring this forward. You can see the thickness gradient through the Rockies like that. So that puts the front on the leading edge in Colorado and New Mexico on Saturday. Actually, this is Friday night. So Friday night looking kind of like this here. So possibly some storms there in southern South Dakota into southeastern Colorado. A little bit of moisture coming up in that area. Then we see a little bit of an MCS maybe overnight for Saturday night. System is very slow to come out of the mountains there, and we see Maria starting to appear off the coast. Then for Sunday night, looking like this. Frontal system is very slow to emerge from the Rockies. It's definitely past Denver and past Albuquerque, and we're seeing MCSs develop every evening around Kansas and Nebraska right there. Very strong moisture coming up from the Gulf there, and we're seeing probably a low-level jet across the Caprock up to western Kansas there. Then for Monday, system is very slow to push, starting to reach the Panhandle there in maybe Omaha, Minneapolis there. And then it looks like something finally kicks it out around Tuesday. And we'll see a change in the weather in Texas. I'm seeing kind of something like that right there in the data. So this could be kind of a stormy day for the Red River region of Texas, back to Abilene and Fort Worth on Tuesday. And then Wednesday, when we do the webcast, it looks like the cold front will have passed much of Texas, looking like this here. There's the high pressure area driving it. Most of the cold air up in this area here. And then for Thursday, the 28th, looks like the front is pushed well to the south, south of the Rio Grande Valley. A little bit of overrunning in far south Texas. And then for Friday and Saturday, looks like kind of a cool pattern, northeasterly flow, some dry air, some cool evenings. And then kind of a stagnant pattern as we await the next system. It looks like even by Tuesday, we still don't have the return flow set up in Texas. So we should have a good period of mild weather here. And yeah, here comes that next shot coming southward. This is on the 4th. And with this one, it looks like that 4th, see that 540 line coming all the way down to Minnesota and the Great Lakes. This is usually where we have a transition from rain to snow. Now with the previous system, what we had was no 540 line at all. We have maybe a 552 up in Minnesota. So this is kind of like maybe highs in the 60s and 70s, maybe in the 50s up north. But the system after that is going to be much colder. Actually, it looks like we had one little shot come through around the 1st, mostly going this way. And then the one in behind it, that has more of a Northwest Territories Nunavut origin. And we see that push southward through the Great Plains there, 540 line right there. And I'm hoping this is not the GFS cold bias. I would really like to see this arrive. Look at that 528 there in the Quad Cities. I don't know. I hope this makes it. I just hope this isn't more of... I mean, this is 384 hours out, but a lot can change between now and then. But if this pans out, we're going to be seeing probably some highs in the 50s in Texas, 50s to 60s, and then up north some 30s and 40s in Minnesota, Iowa, and Illinois there. Okay, so that's probably about all I got for tonight. Just one last look at chat. Has there been violent tornadoes in September and October? Yeah, definitely. There's More Oklahoma got hit back in 1998. October 4th, there was a famous storm outbreak, a very big chase event, and a lot of tornadoes. I remember there was a very slow-moving one that Tim Marshall got. That's probably on YouTube somewhere. And usually by November and December, we do start seeing a lot of severe weather activity in this area here, from East Texas to Mississippi and Tennessee. That becomes a very active severe weather region. It's not very common, but maybe once or twice every month there will be some severe weather developing somewhere in that area. Usually when we have a system coming out of the Great Plains like this, with a warm front well to the south, and then we have like the little of a jet coming up from the south like that, that's usually a good situation for severe weather in this region here. Okay, so that's probably about all I got for tonight. I hope you all have a good evening, and I'll be back tomorrow, probably at the same time, 9 o'clock, and we'll see how this works out. Anyway, have a good evening, everybody, and we'll see you tomorrow.